Hey, what's up, everybody? Navid is here. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur and creator of Virtual Summit Mastery, and we help people just like you exponentially grow your email list, influence, and revenue. And for this awesome session, I have Spuckler on. He's the founder of Heart, Soul, and Hustle, and he kind of been, rising to the fame with these challenges, or as he calls them, 5-day challenges. And you can grow your email list quickly using them, but also, level up your digital product sales. And he will break down this today, like sharing examples and a lot of stuff, like from, obviously he has a lot of students. He's used it himself to grow. I think one of your biggest challenges, like between 2,000 and 4,000 people sign up to one challenge, and then obviously in the back end you're selling your products. So it works really well. It's an effective strategy, and I think it's also a great complement to in what we are doing with virtual summits, right? So with that being said, warm welcome, Zach.
Hey, Navid, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, kind of starting from the beginning a little bit, I just wanted to see kind of how you got started even with the email list building. Like, how did you realize it was important when you started the kind of heart, soul, and hustle brand, and then maybe how you got into even these challenges, and we can get into kind of what it is and stuff like that as well. So, share that story a little bit, and then we get into kind of the specifics.
Totally. So I started Hard Soul and Hustle back in 2015. And I started back in the days when live streaming and Periscope was really big. And it wasn't my first venture into internet marketing. I've been in the internet marketing space for years. I've done everything you can imagine, from direct sales to affiliate websites to pay to click advertising, pay per click advertising. And I really realized from my previous business, which was a food blog, that there was real power in building your email list. And I had created some small, low ticket digital products. And the easiest way for me to fill those up was with email marketing. And so when I started Heart, Soul, and Hustle, I realized how important email marketing was going to be. And so from the very jump, I was really adamant about building my email list, so much so that within the first few months, we'd added several hundred people to our email list. And within the first year, we'd added several thousand. And we've continued to grow our list since then. And the way that I got into 5-day challenges is I really started to launch my digital products. And I was starting out with kind of the webinar model. And I love the webinar model. We still use webinars in our business. They're great, but they take months to kind of get everything right with your pre-launch and your pre-launch content, and then the webinar itself, and creating the webinar and creating the slide deck and testing the webinar and testing the ads. And we realized that it was just this really long process that we were spending months and months doing. And I decided one day to kind of do a 5-day challenge on the recommendation of a friend. I had a friend who was like, "Have you ever run a challenge before?" I'm not the inventor of challenges. We've just created a system around them. And they were like, "You should really try out a challenge to see how it resonates with your audience." And basically, I got to work. And within about 2 weeks, I had successfully launched and executed a 5-day challenge that matched the amount of sales we had done with our previous launch for a webinar. And I started to realize that there was some real power in these 5-day challenges. And so I ended up going to work and saying, like, well, what did we do that worked? What did we do that didn't work? We tweaked, refined, we tested it with different products. We've now tested it in different industries and with our students. And we basically turned it into a process and a system that you can duplicate and scale with 5-day challenges that help you build your email list, sell your digital products, and create an engaged community.
I love that. And what I wanted to get into, I mean, there's many people who might talk about kind of social challenges. I mean, there are many kind of, I guess, misconceptions here and there. And I wanted to get into a little bit, first of all, kind of your definition of what it is and kind of your approach to it a little bit, maybe how it's different from maybe what you've seen other people do. Since, I mean, I'm not claiming to be the inventor of virtual summits. I'm claiming to make it better and kind of less sleazy and stuff like that. That's kind of what we are doing. And I think that's kind of you're taking an kind of an older approach and making it better and coming up with a system to it. So curious to hear kind of your approach to these challenges and the way you're doing them as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the first thing is to talk about what they are. And I'm so glad you asked that question. And really, we define a challenge as 5 days of content followed by a weekend or several days of sales of your digital product. So, it's just 5 days of content that's delivered via email, via live stream, and via social media. to get people to engage with your content and essentially stir up and create desire for your digital program. Now, what makes ours a little bit different, or where we kind of differentiate ourselves, is that we really teach people the power of getting the right content. So we've all seen a 5-day challenge. We've all seen an Instagram challenge or a weight loss challenge, or a course launch challenge, or some sort of challenge. They're not this brand new or wildly inventive concept, but what we've noticed from our students is that we can tell how successful their challenge is going to be from the time that they name their challenge and the way that they execute. So the two things that really differentiate ourselves are, number one, we teach people how to actually name the challenge. And we can get into that today, because the way you name and set up your challenge determines if people want your product. So we kind of go against the grain of the traditional give lots of value and people will buy from you. Right? That's something that we hear in the online marketing space a lot, is like, give value and people will buy. And we say that's not true. Stir desire or create demand and people will buy. So we teach people to run a 5-day challenge that creates demand and creates desire for your product. The second thing that differentiates us is what we consider the everywhere factor. And the everywhere factor is basically like, look, you can do email marketing, you can do social challenges, you can do live videos. But what if you stack all three on top of each other as a way to engage your audience? So we teach people, look, here's how to actually stack live video, email marketing, Facebook advertising, and social selling to maximize reach and make sure that everybody that says, yes, I'm interested, is actually being exposed to your content. So between creating demand and exposure to your content, you end up maximizing sales of your product. And that's how we're a little bit different.
Yeah, totally. I mean, thanks for sharing that, so everyone can get kind of what you guys are doing, what you're gonna break down here today. But I think, as you said, the topic or what you name the challenge, I think that's very important. So, can you get into that, and also guess? I mean, do you need already your product created already, like to have that already in place, and how does that fit in with the whole kind of 5-day challenge or a 5-day challenge funnel and all this? How do you build it out that way so it works?
Yeah. So in terms of actually naming it, what's really, really important is that you're following what we call the PSP model: problem, solution, problem. And a lot of us in our industry, we know the problem that our customer really has. So let's take writing, for example. Let's say you want to be a freelance writer, right? A lot of times customers say, well, my problem is I don't have any clients, right? And we may be saying, well, the real problem is you're not pitching yourself, right? You're not pitching yourself, or you don't have a freelance writing package, so people can't even actually hire you. But new writers are saying, I don't know how to get my first client. I don't know how to get paid. I don't know what to do. So if we're going to run a challenge from their problem, we have to run a challenge called how to get your first freelance writing client in just 5 days. Now, what we ultimately do during that challenge is we teach them, hey, yes, you need to get your first client, but in order to do that, you need to pitch yourself and you need to have a package. And then our paid product might be how to create a freelance writing package and pitch yourself to get booked out. Right now, it doesn't matter if that's what the program is called or if it's got a more catchy name, but the byline or the promise of the product would be how to pitch yourself and how to create a package, right? But if you run a 5-day challenge called how to create your freelance writing package, even though that's what they need, even though that's what they don't know that they need that, right? They think they need to get their first client, but they can't do that until they have a package and they pitch themselves. But if you come out the gate saying, here's a 5-day challenge to pitch yourself, they're going to say, well, I'm not ready to pitch. I don't have any clients. So you have to meet your clients where they are. So the PSP model is basically saying there's a problem your audience has. You need to solve that problem and show them the new problem that you ultimately solve with your paid product. I'll give you another really good example. In our space, we teach people how to launch with challenges. So we do a 5-day training called how to plan your 5-figure challenge. That's because the problem our audience has is they say, I want to sell more. I want to have a bigger launch. So we say, okay, here's how to plan your successful launch. Well, that creates a new problem. How do I promote my launch? How do I fill my launch? How do I sell successfully? And that's what our signature program solves. It's how to build, fill, sell, and execute a successful 5-day challenge. So we actually walk people through this process of, hey, we want to meet our customer where they are and solve their problem, offer a solution to that problem that ultimately creates demand and understanding of the deep or root problem that they have and moves them into desire for our product. So that's how we actually name our 5-day challenges. It needs to be based on a problem that our audience perceives themselves having, not just a problem we know exists.
Yeah, and I mean that's great examples, and I think like really knowing what you're gonna have in like what you are going to sell, so you're actually starting to solve their problems. That's a great explanation. I think not so many people are teaching it this way, so that's kind of the first thing you need to do, right? So what's the next thing people should focus on when they're doing this? Do they need to even have an email list before they do this stuff, or can they do this with 0 email subscribers right now and still do well with this? Do you have any kind of examples, any results there you can share, kind of, so get people a little bit inspired, excited about what they can achieve with this, even if they are kind of at a maybe small list or even no email list with this?
Yes, that's a great question. And we get this a lot is like, if I don't have a big email list, can I still have a big challenge? And my answer to that is twofold. Number one, no. You can't have a big email or a big challenge if you don't have a big email list. Now, that being said, you don't need a big email list to have a successful challenge. And I think that these are two things worth having a dynamic conversation about. And maybe this isn't the rabbit hole you want to go down, and we can steer the conversation. But
Sure.
I think so many people are like, I'm going to have this big $10,000 launch right out the gate. And does it happen? Sure. Have I seen people do it? Absolutely. But the reality is that your first launch in the online marketing space, generally speaking, does not retire you. It's not like, I'm going to
Yep.
launch my business, I'm going to do a challenge in 2 months, and I'm going to quit my job. That's not how it was for me. That's not how it is for most people. And so if you're like, if I want to have this $10,000 challenge, do I need to have an email list? Probably. Now, if you want to have your first $1,000 challenge and add your first couple hundred or several hundred people to your email list, do you need to have an existing audience? The answer is absolutely not. Your challenges can build and scale over time. And I think that that's worth pointing out first is like, yes, you can do it. No, you don't need an email list, but obviously having an audience is going to allow you to scale your launches. And that's the first thing. The second thing is that if you do want to have a big challenge or you want to start with no email list, you have to be willing to put money into 3 different marketing channels or time into one of 3 marketing channels. The first marketing channel is organic social, and that requires time. So that's posting on your Facebook, creating events, posting on Twitter, creating Pinterest, creating blog posts that drive people to your content. Anything that's organic and social that moves people into your challenge. The second place you can invest time is in what I call referral traffic. So doing things like this, where I'm on a virtual summit, reaching a new audience, doing things like podcast interviews, guest posting, things that are going to require an investment of time and possibly money. You may need to pay for a posting on a really big website, or you may be able to pitch yourself and take a little time to write a well-crafted pitch and get featured on a podcast or a guest blog. And the third way is paid media, which would be Facebook advertising, Google advertising, Pinterest advertising, paying to get in front of your ideal customers. And I always tell people when you're getting started, you require 2 resources, time and money. And the more you invest of one, the less you have to invest of the other to get results. But if you're willing to invest both and really scale your efforts, that's where the magic starts to happen. So you asked for an example. We had a student in our challenge add a couple hundred people to their email list with no existing email list, or like 15, 20 people on their email list, go up to a couple of hundred in the writing niche, teaching people how to write. And what she did was she wrote a really well-crafted blog post about her challenge and about her topic. She promoted that blog post like crazy. She put a little bit of ad money behind that. She put a little ad money behind her challenge, and she was able to add a couple hundred people to her email list. Now, here's the really cool thing about this. As you'll learn during this summit, your email list is an asset that grows and scales with your business. So while her first challenge did a couple hundred, her next challenge may do 4 or 5 or 6 or 1,000. It's all about scaling with time and building an asset. So maybe her challenge didn't make $10,000 or $100,000, but she added 200 people to her email list. So the next time she writes a blog or a podcast or a post, she has a way to generate traffic. She has a way to generate shares. She has a way to create referral and engagement activity so that she's starting to reach more people by focusing on the 200 that she's garnered. So that's my thoughts on, like, do you need to have an email list or not? And can you do it without an email list? You absolutely can. But obviously, the bigger your list, the bigger your challenge is going to be, unless you have a lot of money to put into paid advertising.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned this because you take a very holistic approach, similar to what we are doing with summits as well. Obviously, if you have an audience or if you have a lot of influencer relationships, you're gonna do a much bigger summit, like what we are doing now. But we don't start there. Maybe you'll start with a little smaller one. But same with challenges, right? If you have no audience and you don't have much reach yet, but you can still get these kind of small incremental wins and then go bigger later. You're gonna do better for every challenge, every summit, whatever you're doing. You're gonna get better over time. That's kind of, at least that's what I see in our community. I'm so sure you see the same. The people who stick with it, they do better. They do get to the 5-figure level, maybe even 6-figure level, right? If they just stick and keep doing it and keep pushing it. So that's great to share some examples around this. What's kind of the steps that people should take? I mean, you mentioned also the traffic part of it, right? So what should people take the steps to execute their successful challenge when it comes to the planning stage and obviously the launch of it and stuff like that?
Yeah. So when it comes to actually executing the challenge and planning for the challenge, I think the biggest thing to understand is that you do need to have some kind of plan. So, not to throw any shade, but you look at, like, a webinar, you can kind of throw a webinar together in a couple of weeks. And that doesn't mean it's going to convert, but you can set up a slide deck, throw the webinar together, drive some traffic to a sign up page, do the webinar, and, like, either it works or it doesn't. With a challenge, there are more moving pieces, which is what increases its efficiency. So the first thing is, you do really have to create a solid plan. Now, in terms of what that plan looks like, there's really a threefold approach. And we've kind of already talked about this, but that is, every single day for 5 days, you're going to do three things. You're going to send your audience an email, you're going to deliver a live stream, and you're going to post on Facebook with a private community. So every single day you're doing three things so that your audience is being exposed to your content, regardless of whether they open their email or visit you on Facebook or both. So you have to actually sit down and say, okay, what does my email look like for day one? What does my live stream look like for day one? And what am I posting inside my private community for day one? And then repeat that process for day 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then you also have to repeat that process for your sales emails. So if you're going to have 6 sales emails, which is what we recommend, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to write out my 6 sales emails. And then you're going to schedule everything in your email software, whether that be ConvertKit or Infusionsoft or Drip or Aweber. We love and recommend ConvertKit, but the reality is any email software out there can do the basics of what you need. But you have to actually sit down and plan out and write out your content so that when it comes time to deliver your challenge, you do the 2 most important things, which are show up and engage powerfully. Because what a lot of people do, and I see this time and time again with students and people who are not students, is that they say, well, I'm going to run a 5-day challenge. And they pick the topic and they maybe create the content for the first day. And then the end of day 1, they're like, I have to create the content for day 2. And at the end of day 2, they're doing the same thing for day 3. And what happens is all that time is being wasted because you can't spend that time in your private community engaging with your audience. You can't spend that time showing up on live video. You can't spend that time creating relevant content that speaks to the people in the challenge. And it really drains your energy. I don't know about you, maybe you can speak to this, but, like, you don't do this virtual summit and say, like, oh my gosh, it's starting in 3 weeks. I'm going to get a ton of interviews, and then maybe I'll be getting the last interviews while it's starting. You do everything in advance so that when it starts, you can do what's important, which is promote and show up powerfully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a very great way to put it. Yeah, when we are doing summits, we definitely, especially if it's a recorded sessions, we do it in advance, right? And we also need to reach out to speakers and stuff like that in advance, especially if you want some people to go behind it and share it. You're not just coming last week. They're going to have their promo calendars booked. That's just how it is in most industries. But I wanted to kind of to see, like in terms of a challenge, right? I mean, you plan it out, you do this in advance. Roughly how long time would you say it takes for someone, maybe a beginner? You can speak also what it takes you these days when you have, team and all this to help you if you wanted to execute this. So speak to the timing, and then we can get into maybe a little bit the consistency of things. How when you actually go live, how can you be consistent on these different platforms and stuff like that?
Totally. So, in terms of how long it actually takes, we say it takes about 30 days to develop the content and 30 days to deliver the content. So, even though the challenge is only 5 days, you really want to give yourself a solid 2 months to actually create the content and show up with that content. So, that's really like the time frame. Now, that being said, if you want to scale up your challenge, it's really a 2 to 3 month pre-launch commitment. So that's the work of getting on podcasts, posting on social media, creating relevant content, scaling up relevant content, and doing all the things that kind of get your audience built and get your audience excited, so that when you go to do the challenge, you've got people showing up, right? So that's considered like the pre-launch. Now, when we do something, we spend weeks, 6 to 8 weeks in pre-launch, and then 4 weeks in launch. So like a 3 month process is like the ideal. A 4 to 6 month process is if you really want to go at scale and you're putting all your eggs in a basket for a big launch. And a 30 to 60 day calendar is like, I want to run a challenge. I want to do it now. I want to generate some leads and sales, and I want to step into this. That's kind of the timeline. It can be as quick as 60 days, as long as 6 months. And then obviously, the longer your runway, the bigger your launch, which is something that Stu McLaren likes to say. The more time you're promoting and building your audience before, the bigger the launch itself, which makes sense, because this isn't just, oh, I posted on social media every day leading up to my challenge, so I'm going to have a big challenge. This is, I built my audience every day on social media, so it's bigger than it's ever been when I go to launch my challenge. Okay. So that's kind of my answer to that. I know it's like, well, what's the answer? 30 days or 6 months? It's really going to depend on your goals, your business, and what you're looking to do with your business and your products. Now, in terms of showing up consistently, I have a secret, and that is Facebook ads. So Facebook ads and pre-scheduling. So like I said already, if you plan all your content in advance, you're not actually doing anything during the challenge other than clicking the go live button, and scheduling out Facebook ads. I'll talk about the Facebook ads in a second, but basically inside your email software, you should already be sending out or scheduling out the content. So on day one, you're not going into ConvertKit and saying, oh, send out my day one email. On day one, you're getting on your ConvertKit and saying, did my email one go out already? I'm just checking that my system delivered it on time, right? So that's a massive difference between I've got to do something versus I'm just verifying that something happened. And that's something you can even have an assistant or someone on your team do. The second thing that I do is I run ads. So every piece of content that I email in the challenge, I also post on my Facebook and run as an advertisement. What that means is that everybody who's registered for the challenge, I can hit them with a Facebook ad that targets them. So everybody that's seen the thank you page, everybody who's on my challenge list is basically going to get an advertisement every day of the challenge that says, hey, it's day one. Hey, it's day two. Hey, it's day three. Hey, here's my live stream. So in terms of showing up consistently, yes, you do have to go live every day, but your email and your social content is pre-created, pre-planned. So you're just going live and scheduling your Facebook posts every day. And then advertising your Facebook posts every day to kind of create what I talked about earlier, the everywhere effect, where your audience is saying, wow, he showed up in my inbox. He showed up on my newsfeed. He showed up in my private community. He showed up on video. I'm seeing this Zach guy everywhere. And there's something in psychology called the mere exposure effect, which basically means the more someone is exposed to something, the more they trust it. We tend to trust things that we're familiar with. So if we can continue to get in front of our audience with our profile picture and our status and our handle and our Instagram and our Facebook, the more we're in front of them, the more they're going to trust us. And when we ask for that sale, the more likely they're going to be to actually convert to a paying prospect.
Yeah, totally. And I was gonna mention Stu McLaren. We're just there in the first part where you shared that basically the pre-launch and building up to a bigger challenge. And we've seen massive results when we do that, like when we actually put out case studies and we put out stuff. I mean, obviously, if you have a program, you can plan more for this. You can do it if you're gonna use, the 5-day challenge system basically for launching something bigger, not just kind of a smaller promo. But I wanted to also kind of shift gears to ask, can this also be used for maybe smaller things you just kind of randomly want to launch and get it out there quickly with this kind of system, gonna go live and doing all these different things you're sharing? Can that be used in that way and not maybe only for flagship products, like, I mean, that way you are using it and stuff like that?
Absolutely. So we've seen people launch everything from their first $1,000 launch to a $100,000 launch. And the reality is you can use it for core products. You can use it for side products. You can use it for one-on-one consulting. You can use it for group programs. Like I said, the biggest thing to keep in mind is, like, if you're going to shoot from the hip and you're going to do a challenge, give yourself at least 30 days to plan it and execute it so that you've got the time to garner the audience and get people in. If you've already got an audience, like let's say you've got an email list of 1,000 and you're like, well, 990 of them haven't bought anything. What do I do with those 990 people? Invite them to a challenge. Plan all your content in a week to 2 weeks. Run your challenge for 1 to 2 weeks. And there's your 30 days to just get something out the door. Now, obviously, I think it goes without saying that, like, if you're going to do this whole thing where you do it in 2 weeks' time and you promote a non-core product, or you're not like, this is a launch that's the foundational success of my business, it is important that you still put the time in like it is. So it's still important that you plan your content. It's still important that you write everything in advance. It's still important that you schedule stuff into your CRM and you run Facebook ads and you do retargeting and you do all the things that you would do if it was a $100,000 launch, even if it's a $10,000 launch, because not only does that cement good habits for you when you go to scale, but it also creates a really positive experience for your audience. So it can be done in a couple of weeks. The fastest we've ever launched, I want to say, is like 10 to 14 days, and then 5 days of content, and then 2.5 days of cart open. So we've done this whole process in under 30 days. It can be done, but it does take intention and strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of, do you only run these challenges live, or is there an evergreen component to it? Because I know that's kind of rising. Everyone is talking about, hey, I want this evergreen follow this. So does this system also work to scale evergreen, or is it mostly just live? I guess that's the question.
The system can work really well for Evergreen, but there's obviously components that can't be Evergreen. So what we tell people is, if you want to turn a 5-day challenge into an Evergreen process, turn it into a mini course. A mini course where, instead of doing a daily email and a daily live stream, because you can't go live every day if everybody's in a different point in your funnel, you deliver a piece of daily video content, because video generates trust, it generates connection, it generates authority, better really than any other platform, kind of, in my opinion. So if you're going to do your challenge, you need to turn your daily email and live stream content into a cohesive 5 to 10 minute video that can be easily digested, easily used, that they're going to get an email every day for 5 days with that video content. So kind of like a video series, but instead it's short, daily, actionable videos that all happen over the course of 5 days. So if you're watching this, you've probably seen like a video series or a 4-part or a 3-part video series where videos are 30 to 40 minutes long. They drop over a period of a couple of weeks. This is short, concise 5 to 10 minute videos that drop every single day and ultimately lead again through that PSP of creating the desire for your paid product. It can be evergreen. The other thing I like to note about evergreen is that you convert lower when you go evergreen. Not always, but generally speaking. I know very few, I can't even think of anybody who's like, my evergreen out converts my live. Your live always does better. So it's best, if you want to evergreen a challenge, that you're going to run it live a few times, at least 1 or 2 times, to kind of get a good conversion rate, to understand your numbers, to know your numbers, and say, okay, if my conversion rate was to drop in half, what would my lead cost need to look like? What would my conversion rate need to look like? And what would I be able to spend money on to actually generate more sales? Because when you go evergreen, and maybe you've heard this, Navid, and can speak to this, but we are like, if we're getting a 1 to 2 return, like $1 in is $2 out, or $1 in is $3 out from advertising, we're really happy with that. Where with a launch, you can get a 4 to 6 to 10x return on your ad spend, but that doesn't happen as much when you go evergreen. And that's totally normal. So you have to be ready to kind of scale back your sales and scale up your spend, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what you're sharing, I mean, that's totally makes sense. Like in terms of like for live, usually, I mean, converts better. But I think also if you build up content ongoing, right? Like you do, like I mean, you talked about the pre-launch, like really doing, building out content, maybe sharing case studies and content for a period of time before you go into launch. You can technically kind of do that. Even in evergreen format, so you kind of push out content, and then your evergreen will obviously perform better. I've seen like people like Peng Joon, they do a lot of this, right? They multiply all their content across different platforms, and they do a lot of evergreen stuff, right? That's why their Facebook page is blowing up, and they retarget a lot of this following. So I think that's a great strategy. And also, obviously, people recommend usually, hey, do your webinar live first. It's the same with kind of challenges. Same with summits. You're gonna run it first live the first time, then you can obviously evergreen. But just it will not be as many people at the same time coming in typically. So I guess that's some notes on that. But I wanted to kind of shift gears also to the sales side of things too. How do you increase sales during kind of when obviously you share a lot of value for a period of time there during the 5-day challenge? When you shift gears from kind of free value to paid, how do you do that transition? How do you kind of increase sales during that period?
Yeah, so there's three ways that we increase sales during that period. The first is we use a live stream video as our sales mechanism. So as soon as we're ready to open the cart and we're ready to sell, we're going to do a live video that pushes people to our paid product, because again, video converts. And if we can get people live, we can have two-way conversations. We can get Q&A. And very similar to a webinar, if you've ever done a webinar before, the longer your Q&A goes with people asking
Yeah.
questions, generally speaking, the more sales you get. So it's the same process with challenges. If you can get people on your live stream on day 5 or day 6 and actually asking questions and engaging with you, and that's going to help push more sales. So number 1 is live video. Number 2 is retargeting ads. So we absolutely recommend that you retarget people who have gone through the challenge with paid advertising to get them over to your product sales page. Retarget people who are in the challenge, retarget people who have seen the sales page, retarget people who have seen the checkout page, hit them with testimonials, hit them with videos, hit them with static image content, right? Hit them with everything you've got to move them back over to the sales page and into the buying process. And then the third thing we do to increase sales is all the email marketing. So obviously, this is a list building summit. We want to use that list we're building. And I think one of the big things that I want to communicate is that those people, they opted in to be on your email list. Don't be afraid to email them. So on the last day of our challenge, we recommend that you email your list 3 times. And that's actually a conservative amount compared to some of the people in the online marketing space. Some people email 5, 6, 7 times on cart close day, but we say, look, just be willing to email 3 times. And in total, you're going to email people 6 times while your cart is open. And that can seem like a lot, but the reality is a lot of people need lots of information to buy. They need a reminder. Not everybody opens your emails. When you're looking at a 30 to 40% open rate on a cart close sequence, sometimes lower, half of them aren't even seeing every email or any of the emails. So it's important that you email on a regular basis. So when you've got live video combined with retargeting ads combined with strategic email marketing, you maximize your conversions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is good stuff. This is really valuable. And actually, I don't know if I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this actually, because I see digital marketer, they're sending like a value-based email in the morning. They have a lot of products, obviously, Ryan Dice in the team, but they send usually a value-based email in the morning. Then in the afternoon or evening, whatever, I think that's usually what I see from them. They're sending more of a pitch email, right? So that's kind of I've been thinking like how can, and that works in actually more markets and not just online marketing space. I would be interested to kind of see how that can work. Maybe even during my summits, I'm going to send more emails, and obviously during launches, you can send more kind of follow-up because not everyone will see your emails. And if you have a different kind of value-based approach, plus then maybe having some kind of product you're pitching in another email, that could work. So I don't know if you've seen that, Zach, in terms of like how many emails you're sending, or have you tested sending more emails to your list, and what's their response usually to that?
Yeah, we've definitely sent more than just 3 emails a day, and we've definitely sent more than 2 emails a day. Um, and honestly, there's always one or two people that complain, but the mass majority don't mind. The mass majority are either not reading it or just putting it in the archive or the trash if they're not interested, or they're opting out if they're not interested. And all of those are okay. I was actually just telling a friend the other day, so I'm glad you brought it up, that I love that digital marketer constantly emails me. I love digital marketer. I love their products, and I like knowing what's going on. Now, do I buy every email that digital marketer sends through? No, but I buy stuff from digital marketer. I love learning from them. Ryan Dice is a ninja, and he emails way more consistently than I do. Now, granted, he's got a whole team and a whole company and employees and head of marketing and head of everything, right? But I love that they email every day because I'm a user that wants that content. And when you really create a challenge that speaks to a problem your audience identifies, and you really solve that problem and offer solutions, what you will find is that people want your content. They want you to answer their questions. They want you to remind them. They want you to tell you, oh my gosh, there's only a few hours left. There's a reason that we generally see an increase in sales as the doors start to close, right? I'm sure you see this with your summit,
Yeah.
or with your, or not with your summit, I'm sorry, with your products, that
Yeah.
as the cart goes to close, as that deadline gets closer, you get more sales. It's because people need to be reminded. It's because people need deadlines to take action. And when you leverage those things and get that out in the open and say, like, guess what? I built this list. I paid money to build this list. I'm going to email this list. Like, really, really powerful things happen. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's usually what I see actually. Like when we open cards, whether that's, I mean, if we haven't executed with a challenge launch in particular, but like any type of launch, you open the cart, and then basically, if you have a fast action bonus or something like that on the open cart, you will get a bunch of sales there. Maybe you have a discount or a fast action, whatever. And then on the close cart, a lot of people are waiting. Maybe you can increase it during like the open cart week as well if you have some extra bonuses and webinars and whatnot. But usually, a lot of people are waiting till the very end, right? Till, even till the last hours. I'm sending emails like, I actually got a lot of this from kind of Ryan Levesque. He's sending a ton of emails. I think he's sending like 7 or 8 emails now on the closed card sometimes. And that's, I mean, it's working. Of course, some people will be a little bit annoyed, but if they already signed up for the launch or whatever you are doing, you can go back to more of a regular schedule, whether that's 1 email a day or 1 email a week. As long as you're consistent, I think that's kind of the best way forward, right? So have you also seen that kind of the open cart is a big spike, Zach, and then kind of, midweek is kind of slowing down, and then the closed cart is getting more as well?
Yeah, we say that in a challenge or really any launch that we're ideally looking for what we call a J curve, which is an influx of sales, a decrease in sales as the cards open, and then a spike at the end. So if you look at it, it looks like a sideways J. So absolutely, that's what we're looking for. That means we've done something right. It means we've created demand. There are instant buyers, there are lurkers, and then there are last minute people. And you want to get them all interested and paying attention to your product. So yeah.
That's awesome. So you kind of, as we're wrapping this up, I kind of ask this to some people. Like, let's say you have everything you have right now. You don't have the Heart, Soul, and Hustle brand. You don't have anything, but you have your expertise, and you want to build up basically, let's say, 1,000 email subscribers and get your first $10,000. Would you go? I mean, you didn't do this right away with the challenges, but now if you would do that over and starting over, basically, is that kind of the approach you would take? Like what? Share some tips and kind of before we kind of wrap up this, what people should do if they're in this situation, and what you would do if you started all over.
Totally. So we actually did a podcast on this called "How I Would Make My First $10,000 If I Had to Start Over."
That's
So
awesome. I didn't know that actually, for your reference.
I, I don't have it. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't cheat. But here's probably what I would do, kind of off the cuff, since I don't have it in front of me for reference. But basically, the first thing I would do is I would do a live workshop of some kind and run Facebook ads to get people on the live workshop. I would do a 2 to 3 hour workshop. So this is not a webinar where I'm pre-selling or selling content. This is, I take my industry, I take my expertise, and I run Facebook ads to get 100 people registered for this training. And then on the training, I say it's a pitch-free training, which encourages more people to sign up. And I say, I have nothing for sale, but if you want to own a recording of this, it's yours for $47 to $97. The reason I do that is it helps me recover my Facebook ad costs, and it allows me to start creating buyers. So that's where I would start with that. Now I've got an email list of about 100 people. I can either repeat that process again for the next 100, Or what I would do is I would send a survey to this audience saying, hey, what are you struggling with when it comes to this? So very similar to what Ryan Levesque teaches in the Ask Method. I would say, what's your biggest struggle in my case when it comes to online marketing? And I'm going to pay attention to the survey responses, and I'm going to start to formulate a challenge around what these people want. Now, I wouldn't build anything yet, but I would start asking them, what do they want? Then I would formulate a 5-day challenge around this and spend on Facebook ads basically what I've recovered, trying to get people into my 5-day challenge. I would also promote organically, and I would also leverage my expertise to get on a few different podcasts and time out the release dates, or ask the host to time out the release dates to be in alignment with my challenge. So now I'm going to run a challenge. My goal would be 250 to 300 people registered, which brings my email list to 400. And I would pre-sell a product at the 197 to 297 price point. So ideally, I've gotten about 5 sales at the $97 price point. Ideally, I get another 10 sales at a $200 price point. So I've invested in Facebook ads, yes, but I've made about $1,500 at this point. So I've got about $1,500 or break even on ads, and I've got an email list of about 400 people. The next thing that I would do is I would follow up with my clients, the people who have paid me, and invite them to a strategy or discovery call to work with me one-on-one. That's going to help me generate more revenue. And I just need one client. So at this point, I've got 15 people that have paid me. I'm going to invite them all to apply to work with me one-on-one. There's a good chance 1 or 2 apply. If I can close one of those sales calls, I've got one client, let's say at $2,000. I take that $2,000 and I put it into another challenge. After I finish my first paid product, and now I relaunch the challenge, hopefully double the size of it to 500, sell my completed product, upsell people from the completed product into a group, or again, one-on-one coaching. And now I've got an email list of 1,000. I've done anywhere from, $7,000 to $8,000 in sales. Plus I've got some premium clients, and I have a product. So I built up a list, a product, and a roster of one-on-one clients. That is exactly what I would do if I had to start over.
Man, that's an amazing answer. Actually, more than I expected. I thought you're gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna do a challenge," but I actually give a lot more to people to can give you some food for thought, right? If you are in a similar situation, maybe you already have some expertise, right? And then you can kind of do this and position yourself, go on other podcasts, and then obviously fitting in the challenge within all of this, and then getting to your first $10,000. And that you can also scale, obviously, to the 6-figure level. You're building your email list at the same time. So I think what you shared here today is really awesome stuff. It can be worked together with summits, can be complemented with it. I mean, I think that's why challenges are so powerful. I see some bigger influencers as well using them. You're using them, some students in a wide variety of markets. So thanks so much for coming on here. Is there any final words you'd like to share with people before we wrap up there? Here, obviously, you have heartstoulandhustle.com has a lot of great resources. We'll post a link as well to like a checklist. Or what do you have for us, Zach?
Yeah. So what I have for you, and you can link it up below, is a free little challenge workbook where I walk you step by step through how to plan your challenge, how to determine what to name it, how to come up with the content for the 5 days, and really how to, choosing what promotional channels of those 3 channels am I going to do: organic, referral, or paid. And it's not crazy long. It's several pages, but really it just makes you get your ideas out of your head and onto paper. So if you listen to this and you thought, man, I love the idea of a challenge, but what am I going to teach? The challenge launch workbook will help you plan out the topic, the content, and the marketing strategies that you can deploy from a high level, and help you start getting your plans onto paper.
That's awesome. So, if you're watching this, listening into this, post below your biggest takeaway from Zach's session. We'll be there checking out your comments and what you thought of this. I'd be happy to see that. Maybe some of you will, execute on this strategy, and, let me know in the comments below. Zach will be there as well. So with that being said, thanks a lot, Zach, for coming on here and sharing so much value with my audience.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute blast, and it's always fun to see what List Building School is up to.